Hi, I'm Ashley Adamson, and I wanted to talk to you about the tipping point in your transition. There's actually multiple tipping points, and I find this to be a very interesting topic that people don't really talk about or really maybe even think about too much because it's a subtle thing and it can happen just suddenly. So what I mean by tipping point is, that moment where you suddenly realize something and you go, oh, like this all makes sense. Perhaps that happened to you when you realized that you were trans, realized that you're a woman or a man, and that moment kind of dawned on you as obvious once it happened, right? But up to that moment, things may have been, what did it feel before that? It felt a little unclear. You may have been questioning. You may have been like, well, I'm not sure, or maybe. It's kind of like how we work. We kind of, without jumping to decisions immediately, we often kind of sketch on the wall these ideas. Like think about your creative process, or when you're making a big decision, you kind of have this wall in your head where you're sketching up some ideas, you're whiteboarding, and you kind of like put it there, you kind of think about it a little bit, and then you step back and maybe think about it later. And eventually there comes this moment where the math equation, so to speak, makes sense and it all comes together. And that's what I would call the tipping point. So I wanted to talk about that because when we transition, we often think of this thing as this linear progression. And it seems like the end of the transition could be so far away, you're not even sure how you're going to get there. It can be daunting. Like, what does it feel like for you? And for me, it's like I kind of felt like it'd just be this curve of, change. And that impression or that expectation of my transition made it actually difficult at times. Where are you in your transition? Like, how's this curve look like? I want to talk about that because there's these tipping points, and the way that progression for me has happened is actually more like not a lot of change, not a lot of progress. Then suddenly everything like kind of clicks into place, and then there's this large jump in my experience in terms of transitioning into a woman. And the reason why I kind of thought of this topic was because today I had a tipping point moment. And it's really funny because you may not notice the tipping point when it occurs, because you've been working towards it and you've been gradually making these little changes in your life to make yourself more feminine or masculine and to settle into your body more so that you can get to a point of acceptance of something related to your transition, or just who you are, or where you live, or your friends, or what have you, because there's many tipping points in our life, right? Where else in your life have you experienced these sudden large changes that you had built up over time with? So I had this tipping point. I went shopping for boobs. What are these called? Bras. Those things. I went shopping for bras because my boobs are now soft enough. Check these out. I can squeeze them. Yeah. And so now I can wear bras with wiring in them. Anyways, I went shopping for that. And I saw other women's bodies in yoga pants, and I'm in LA, and there's like a lot of hot girls. So I'm looking at some girls, and I'm gonna be like, damn, like those hips, that booty over there, like I'm kind of like shopping for clothes, but I'm really kind of shopping for bodies. God, that sounds so wrong. But like, that's kind of how my mind works. I am a self-admitted perfectionist in a lot of ways, and that's kind of my own inner demon that I have to work through is the perfectionism that I seek for myself and expect for myself. Different topic. How are you with your own acceptance of your body and where you want to go and how you want to change things? It's a statement for me to push for myself to get to the most ideal version of myself. That's my own personal life challenge. How do I become the best person? And how do I help you become the best person for yourself? That's what I think is the most valuable thing, because we want to get the most out of life. Why not squeeze that lemon? Anyways, I digress. So I went shopping, I was looking at bodies, and I've been thinking a lot about hip surgery. once I had face surgery and I had breast surgery a couple months ago, and I thought there was going to be this big change, this big transition, but there wasn't. I mean, like you would expect, you see your new face, you have new boobs. Wouldn't you expect this kind of like, oh my God, like I've changed. I feel like I've made a huge step forward in my transition. And I didn't. I just felt like I had just a different face and I had different boobs. Let me see if I can just adjust this so you can see my hands a little bit. And so I was like, well, where's the change here? Because I'm not experiencing much. It's just kind of like my face feels swollen. I can't smile so well. Now I can smile. It's getting better. And I expect, come on, I paid money. I expect change. But of course, the change is not, it doesn't happen just because you change things externally. You can wear a dress, you can put on makeup, but you're not going to change unless there's something inside you that changes. And I was waiting for that. I was trying to see how I could evolve or what was going to happen, but not try to force it. Because if you try to force change, it's never going to be lasting. So I just kind of waited and I sat around being like, oh, okay, like I like my body more. I like my new face more. And I just kind of waited for things to click, but they didn't. That was until today, things clicked. And I realized today is my tipping point in my transition. So I've had many tipping points, but this is the tipping point for me. And maybe this can be related back to you as an example of a tipping point. For me, I saw myself in the mirror and I recognized that I didn't have that internal dialogue that put me into a judgmental space of, do you look like a woman? Do you look like you passed? Do you look beautiful? Like all of these things. I just looked in the mirror and I saw, oh, like beautiful woman, she looks cute. And I'm like, what? Oh, great. Like that's different. That's a different relationship with this trans girl in this mirror. I'll take that. And it was just like simple, no sound voice. And I thought to myself, that's the first time I've had that experience, I think, in my whole life. Because when I was a man, I would always look at myself like, you're ugly, like you don't look good, you're not beautiful, you're not what I want, you're not what I accept, I don't like your lips. The list goes on. And as a trans woman, I just kind of continued in that, but I was getting a little bit nicer with myself because I liked being a woman more. After surgery, and my surgery is now kind of reduced in swelling to about 80% of the results, I looked at myself and I said, oh, like she looks cute. And there was nothing there to kind of push me down or be negative about it. And I thought, well, I could think negatively in this moment. That's my habit, that's my routine. Those are hard to beat, right? Like, where are your habits at with the mirror? And it's like, are there ways in which you can kind of like floss your habits a little bit and kind of clean them out? Good mirror habits, good self-love, and when you see yourself. The criticism wasn't there, and I thought, that's a tipping point, right? That's a change, and I'll take it. I'll take it. Instead of like trying to kind of call it back, the old stuff, I'll take that change. And later today, I was looking at hips, and I've had like this big kind of like issue with my hips. Like it brings me to tears. It's the thing that kind of feels like it separates me from having the female body that I want. And I'm looking at these women, I'm like, oh, her hips and her hips and her hips. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I really do need to go for hip augmentation. And it's not something that I'll just say is gonna maybe happen. No, like it's gonna happen. I'm gonna make that decision. I saw one last girl and I was like, yep, you know what? I could fight this. I could fight this self kind of body issues and work through that. And I can spend years kind of growing through that. Or I can just get what I want and say, I'm done, be done with it. And just like erase the voice. And I think that's probably one of the most amazing things about surgery is you can take these quantum leaps in erasing that voice that pushes you down and doesn't accept you and holds you back. And that's the missing ingredient that I didn't realize that surgery can have on a trans person, is that it, instead of like quelling it or just helping reduce it. It can just flat out erase it if you give yourself the mental space and the mental capacity to allow that to unfold. And that today was my tipping point in that experience. I saw myself in the mirror, changed that a little bit, and then now I've suddenly become very clear on the surgery that I want to have with my hips. And this is really interesting. It all clicked into place that once I get my hips, and I should make another video about this because it's a whole nother topic. But once I get my hips, I'm going to be in a feminine female body that I'm going to accept. And that means I'm going to be ready to approach the vaginoplasty conversation in my head. The vaginoplasty conversation in my head right now is kind of like, well, I kind of like what I have and like everything's cool and like I think it's sexy. But I think when I get to that place where I can fully see that female body in the mirror, I'm just going to be looking for the last thing to remove, to eliminate, to kind of like fully realize this female, this woman that I am. So that was also kind of like that's a big one to approach. I haven't completely approached it, but I'm calling it now. Mark my words, in 2 years, I probably will be talking about getting a vaginoplasty or I'll already have it. So that's my tipping point. And I want to call that out because it's this progression system. You kind of like make all of these changes in your life to get there. And then suddenly things just snap and they click. And it feels like in between the tipping point and the starting point, it just feels like a slog. It feels like you're just trying things and you're just moving along and it may not even feel like you're making much progress, but you are, right? Like you may say, oh, well, I'm going to start wearing nail polish and then I'm going to start wearing a few dresses, but maybe I don't feel a little bit more feminine or what have you. But if you make these small changes and you make this progress, it's kind of like you're investing in your own personal stock that's going to grow over time, and those like penny a days and like doubling that's like compounding. And so at one point where you've kind of moved up and that's become your new baseline, and you move up and that becomes your new baseline, you eventually hit the tipping point, and then suddenly you go, oh my God, I didn't have those thoughts anymore, or I see myself differently, or I feel and experience myself differently, or like I'm being seen differently, or what have you. That's the most important and satisfying moment that you get to. But when you're in the middle of it, when you're in the middle of your transition, it's not very clear where that tipping point is. It's this invisible thing that suddenly happens. It's this catalytic moment that you don't see coming, and then it just happens. And that's pretty amazing, right? Like, have you felt that you feel lost sometimes? Have you felt like you haven't gotten to where you want to go, or you feel like other people are making more progress than you, which is a comparison thing, and that's a little separate? Have you like, and we all do that, by the way, like, do you compare yourself to other trans women? Do you compare yourself to me? Like, I hope you're not, because I mean, I hope you're not, because it sucks and I do it myself. And that's why I laugh, because I also compare myself to other trans women, and I feel down about that. So, I'm sorry if you're also feeling that way. Like, support and hugs. Just know that I'm here to support. I'm here to give you that love, and I really hope you're doing really, really well in your transition, and that you're going to continue to make progress. And when you feel like you're in the fog of that transition, you're going to hit that tipping point. You're just not going to know until it happens. And the tipping point isn't big. Like on the graph, it's kind of a big change, but because every single day you have a new baseline and you slowly adapt and adapt and adapt and adapt, it doesn't actually feel like a big change. And so I want you to pay attention and ask yourself where in your life these little changes added up, and then suddenly it just clicked. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, so that's all. I'm getting ready for my trip back to Berlin. I'm leaving in a few days, and I want to send you guys a big hug. Please send me some good vibes for my trip back so I can make more videos and keep helping you guys out. And oh yeah, by the way, check out my website. I put that up. It's in my description, ashleyxadamson.com. Right now, I'm not offering coaching sessions, but I will be. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out and sign up for my newsletter if you want to get the femininity program, which I am writing tomorrow or completing tomorrow, and then I'll be releasing that soon. If you're new to this channel, please like and subscribe and write me a comment. I read them, and I know there's a lot of comments sometimes for me to keep up with, but I really do my best to kind of respond and see all of them. I love you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Namaste. I've never said that before. I just thought that, that was natural. Love you guys. Bye.